Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Better Together podcast. I'm Kelly Sunsvold, co hosting with my partner and business and in life, Sean Sunsvold. Today, we're excited to sit down with Phil Masiello, founder of Crunch Growth, a revenue acceleration agency that helps businesses scale smarter by turning data into decisions. From launching Crunch Growth to leading multi-channel strategies for clients across B2B, healthcare, and consumer goods, Phil brings a fresh take on what it means to grow with intention. We're diving into his startup journey, lessons from the trenches, and how he's helping business stop guessing and start scaling. So, Phil, welcome. Let's just jump right in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course, of course. And for audience who are getting to know you, you're just down the street from us, kind of. You're down in Baltimore area,
I
and
am
we're up
actually,
in
yep.
Westminster. So, yeah, so one of our locals. So, what inspired you to launch Crunch Growth, and what problems were you originally starting to solve? Now, part two of that question is I know you have a long history of being an entrepreneur. So, would love to hear some of that I know led to Crunch Growth.
Yeah, I never actually intended to start an agency. What happened was prior to the agency, I had founded a shaving brand, and our partner in that shaving brand was Energizer, Schick. They owned Schick at the time. Now it's Edgewell, and they own several other brands. And so they were providing us with a razor, and we scaled that business pretty quickly. It was a struggle at first, to be honest. And then it took off, and only because I did a little stunt where I offered, there was a pitcher for the San Francisco Giants named Brian Wilson, and he had this beard, an epic beard, and Major League Baseball hated it, and they kept fining him, and but he was a great pitcher. And he got Tommy John surgery, had got injured Tommy John surgery. They traded him to the Dodgers, and it was first time he was gonna pitch in a year. And we had been struggling with scaling the shaving business. We were doing all the things we were supposed to do, but it just wasn't clicking. And I woke up one morning and I was reading the sports and I saw that he was going to pitch. And I thought, here's an opportunity. So I sent a message to his people and I said, I'll pay him $1 million to shave with our razor. And they responded back and said, we'll pass it by Brian. And that's all I needed was now I could legitimately say we are in discussions to pay Brian Wilson $1 million to shave with our razor. Gave it to the PR firm and it exploded because everybody thought we were nuts. And like all the sports guys were interviewing us thinking, what's wrong with you? All the humans were yelling at us saying, how could you give a guy who's already worth millions, $1 million? There's people starving in the world. And then we had the other people who were sending us pictures, some not safe for work, on social media saying, I'll shave
No.
this for 5 grand. I'll shave this for 10 grand. And so that really blew us up and that helped us along the way. And then the market just got really, really crazy. For some reason, everybody wanted to be in the razor business, in the shaving business. Harry's got into it and Dollar Shave Club, and it all just exploded. And then everybody wanted to be in it. And so we were just getting offers every week to sell. And I had a board because we had raised money. Michael Phelps was involved. John Scully was involved, Energizer, obviously. And so we wound up selling. And after we sold, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do. And Energizer called me up and said, hey, look, we're a big company, but we don't know anything about this direct to consumer world. We don't know anything about websites. We don't know anything about selling on Amazon. We sell to Amazon. We sell to retailers. We sell to drug. We sell superstores. We don't know anything about direct to consumer. So we need somebody to help us with that. And, they actually knew us from a prior business called Raw Essentials, which we did with Carol Alt. I'm sure we'll talk about that later. And so I said, look, I'm not a consultant. They said, we don't want a consultant. We actually want somebody who can do it because we can't do it. If we do it, we're going to aggravate all of our customers. So it has to be done in a specific way. So we launched the Schick Hydro, which was a 5-blade razor, which was great. So we built all their consumer facing websites and we started selling their products on Amazon. And that sort of launched Crunch Growth. And after I guess about a year, I started saying to my folks, I don't want to be tied to one big company. We need to get more. I guess we're going to wind up scaling this thing. And so we started to get other clients. And our whole focus is, when you crunch data, you crunch growth, right? Data is growth. And so that's the term crunch growth. That's really how the whole thing started. And we focus primarily on consumer products because that's something we understand. I've been working with consumers for decades. So that's really where our sweet spot is. And we help brands to go from, 1 million to 10 million, 5 million to 20 million, wherever you want to get to. But we're very specific about who we work with because we want to make sure that you understand who you are and what your brand is and how your brand is different. If you're just a Me Too product, there's nothing I can do to help you. You're just going to fight the price battle constantly. So you have to really come to us and say, look, this is what makes us different. And then we can take that and we can run with it. So that's who we are.
That's awesome. And one of the things I want to mention that haven't quite gotten into yet, but this was not your first company to start, right? If I read on LinkedIn correctly, you started 4 different companies, correct?
I exited positively
Exited
4
4. Okay.
different companies. I started about 10, but only 4 were successful. I talked to people about, everybody. I opened up a meeting with an entrepreneur group a couple of weeks ago, and I said, "Look, in my lifetime, I started 10 different companies." And everybody goes, "Ooh, ah." I said, "Yeah, but only 4 are successful." I said, "But I'm okay with that because I think about a guy like Derek Jeter or any great hitter, the batter in baseball. They bat 330 and they're stars. So I'm batting
Mhm.
400. So I
There you
feel good."
go. There you go. So one of the things with that is, what was one like early failure in your entrepreneurship journey that helped shape how you operate today?
Yeah, the first one was a failure. It's a complete disaster. I started a business when I was 27 years old. The fundamentals of the business were sound. It was me who was not sound.
Mm.
I failed 100% completely at leadership, completely at process management, completely at systems. And I still to this day tell people I feel so sorry for the people who worked for me at that time because it must have been absolute chaos for them to come in every day. They must have hated it because it truly was chaos. And I fell into this entrepreneurial trap, which a lot of entrepreneurs have, which is it's my idea, it's my company, I'm the entrepreneur, therefore I should have all the answers. And that is a terrible place to be. And so I did that for about 3 years, and in spite of me, the it was a retail store. The store was actually busy. We were busy. But God, the way the thing was operating, it was just horrible. And so after 3 years, I recognized the fact that there was a problem somewhere along the line and it needed to be fixed. I'm not a quitter by any stretch of the imagination, but I thought it was time. And I sold the business, and that's
Mm,
when I was in New York. I moved to Maryland, and I went to graduate school at University of Maryland, not because I felt like I needed more education. I felt like I needed to think differently. There was obviously a problem, and I needed to figure out how to self-analyze that and understand what I did wrong, which is really, really difficult to do because most people want, and I'm guilty of it in the beginning. Most people want to sit there and go, "Oh, it was because of the landlords, because of the location, it was because of this." No, it wasn't. It dawned on me about a year into school that it was 100% me. That business should have been able to scale to multiple locations, but I was absolutely the problem. And I was lucky enough that there was a company down in Washington, D.C. called Sutton Place Gourmet, which had retail stores. And I actually got involved with Sutton when there were 2 stores, made a little investment in it, and we scaled that business to 12 stores in DC. Plus, we made a couple of acquisitions. And it was there that I truly understood and truly learned how to lead people correctly. I had a great mentor there who was the president of the company. And, I learned how to raise capital correctly. I learned how to allocate capital correctly. I learned how to lead people. I learned how to manage processes and set up processes. And so there is really where I got a great education in how to scale a business, and we did, and then we exited that business after a bunch of years.
awesome. And like one of the things that you mentioned is, it's really easy as a business owner to put it around yourself, right? It's my business. I have to have the answers. And then you got to this point of you need more than yourself, right? And there's a great accountability story there, right? Of like when you own a business, I'm the accountable person of whether it wins or loses or is successful or fails. How long did it take you to really implement that for yourself once you figured that out?
Once I figured it all out, and then once I started doing it in action, I mean, I made it's such an I figured it out probably in, like I said, in my first year of school, going into my second year, it really dawned on me that it was me 100% that was the problem. And then when I was at Sutton, and I was working at Sutton full time while I was going to grad school, and it was there that I started implementing, these changes. Like I said, I had a boss who was the CEO, the president CEO of the company, and we were a very lean company, so I had a direct relationship with him. I mean, we were taught we spoke constantly, and he gave me this project to put together the book to go out and raise money. So I was talking to him all the time, and every day he would give me feedback on how I was handling things. And he was really the one who sort of pointed out how to lead people and get them to do things. He was extremely even keeled. He would listen and before he made any kind of statement. And one of my problems was in the early days that I would react, right? Something would happen and I would react. And sometimes I would react negatively. And he would say, look, man, you have to listen. And then when you listen, then you ask questions like, why did this happen? What did we do? How did this happen? And then you make a determination. And so I started to realize that, I had this feeling like I should always have the answer, and I shouldn't always have the answer. And by asking a lot of questions, you're in a dialogue with somebody and you come to the answer, you come to the conclusion. And
Mhm.
once you do that with another person, right, then they understand it better and it's easier for them to go out and implement what we just talked about. So it took me a while, I would say a good 3 years before I really started to understand it and then get good at it because it's something you actually have to practice and you actually have
Mhm.
to use it as a tool. But it changed. It really changed the way that I manage and
Yeah, it's the entrepreneur journey, and we talked about this when we on our first call. Like, there is a heart to wanting to do it. Like,
yeah,
I shared with you about my stationery business that I had when I was about 10 or 11, and I was selling stationery to my neighbors that I was making, and I
yeah,
thought this was the grand idea. This is going to make it. And fast forward to now I'm 44. Like, I think back on that and I was like, there's something in the heart of that, and I think you have it too, where it's just like, I have these ideas, but I don't have quite all the skills yet to make it a business, or like you were talking about when you were 27 and that business that you started and, it failed. Like it takes a little bit to grow into the entrepreneurial shoes, so to speak. There's still stuff Sean and I are learning even at this age, and I don't think you ever do. If you stop learning, then it's over. So always growing. Yeah.
yeah.
So
I agree with that.
so kind of on that, what's kind of some of the misconceptions that businesses have about scaling? They're like, I just want to get bigger, but what are some of the misconceptions?
Yeah. So what I sort of preach to people about scaling is before the first thing you have to know about scaling, or the first thing you have to do is you have to prove out that you can get customers. Everybody thinks, oh, I have my minimal viable product and I put it out there. And so I'm ready to scale. No, you're not. You have your minimal viable product and that's great. But now what you have to do is you have to build a customer base. You have to find people who are going to pay you for your product, not just once, but twice or three times. And then you have to figure out who those people are and what they like and don't like about your product. And then you start to refine it. But until you really understand your customer and to really understand who's going to buy your product, you're not ready to scale. And too many people scale too quickly and they fail. And I've seen it. And I coach young entrepreneurs all the time about this. And frankly, I was at an investor conference about a week ago, and I was talking about raising money as because I think another problem that startups have is everybody wants to go out and raise money right away, and
Right.
there's other ways to do it, and you don't it becomes an albatross if you don't do it right. And anyway, there were other VCs and PE guys there talking about it, and they were talking about what they expect. And one of them said something that really stuck with me, and he's right. He said, "Look, I'd rather invest in an A team with a B product than a B team with an A product.
Mm,
So because the A team knows what's happening. They know how to get that done. They've done the research. He said, because if you're going to come to us and ask us for money, we're going to want to know who your customers are that are buying your product. And we're going to talk to them. We're going to go out and interview them, whether it's B2B or B2C, it doesn't matter to us. We're going to talk to customers to figure it out. And so many times entrepreneurs, startup guys go in there and they're totally not ready. They're not ready to accept capital. They're not ready to really do anything with the capital, and they're certainly not ready to scale. So to me, you really have to know who you're going after, who your customer is before you can start to scale.
That feels so much just the way you're talking about that. It feels so much like a Shark Tank episode watching people who are unprepared,
Yeah.
right? Go in there and be like, they don't know their numbers and Kevin gets to rip them up one side and down the other. So one of the things with Crunch Growth that you guys talk about is revenue acceleration. How do you define that? And how is your approach to helping people scale different than other companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think most companies or most agencies that we see um, get so focused on ads, and they just want to run
mm,
ads. It's like,
mhm.
you go to them and they say, "Okay, no, we have to run ads, and you'll spend $15,000 a month on ads or $20,000 a month on ads, and we take 15%." Blah, blah, blah. It's not always about ads, scaling. And the key that we focus on is, again, the first step for us is, what's the point of difference? Because if we don't understand the point of difference, if we don't understand, you can just, too many times people come and say, well, we're better than our competition. Okay, well, better is subjective and it's not quantifiable.
Right.
Different is quantifiable, right? And so it's fine to be better and different, but it's not enough to just be different. You have to, I mean, not enough to be better. So the first thing we try and figure out is, where are you different from your competitors? And then what we do is we sort of craft the story around that, because today, what people want, what consumers want, is they want to connect with the brand. They want to understand who the product is, what the product is. Why did you, the founder, make this product? What problem are you solving with it? Right? And then once you figure that out, then you can start crafting a message, and then you can start using social media organically. You could start, and today, in my opinion, it's great because we have this opportunity to make short form video that we can put out on YouTube Shorts and TikTok and Reels and all these places to get your message out organically without spending a dime. And yes, then you can start pushing some ads out that will maybe get there. But there's so many different ways to get your message out today. And if you have a really strong message and you start using user generated content, you start using micro influencers, you start using organic social, you can really make headway before you start spending a ton of money on ads. Ads, to me, are a support vehicle, not the primary vehicle.
I agree. My goodness, I
Wholeheartedly.
agree.
Yeah.
I often, when we have clients that are like, "I just wanna run ads. I'm gonna get leads if I run the ads." And I'm like, "You have these foundational things to work through." I was like, "If you wanna make Mark Zuckerberg really rich, then let's just run ads, but let's get the foundational stuff done first."
We're going to be started on Meta and you know, 30, 30 I'm going to tell you this, because I listen to this garbage all the time from people about meta ads. 36% of your ad spend, 36% of your ads are showing to bots and fake accounts.
Oh,
So Meta, 36%. So don't tell me you're spending a ton of money on Meta and it's not working, because I'm going to tell you shouldn't be. You want to take that money and spend it on programmatic advertising. If you're going to do some advertising, let's do programmatic advertising where we can figure out who the customer is, hone in on them, and spend some money that way. Meta, to me, it's disgusting what's going
yeah,
on.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things you mentioned in that conversation there was being different, right? It's okay to better's okay, but it doesn't really help you. Being different is what helps you. How do you help companies figure out what makes them different versus a competitor?
Yeah. So this is where the second part. So Crunch Growth executes, right? We take the story, we craft it, we do, I have some people that make great content, we execute. Phil is a coach, right? So there's Phil Masiello, the coach, there's Crunch Growth. And so what happens is companies will come to us and they may not understand what their point of difference is. And so I'll suggest to them, hey, let's do a 1 day and let's go through your business and we'll help you get there. And that's a, so that's a process of trying to help people figure out what their point of difference is and looking at the market competitively, looking at where you fit in. Too many people got tied up, in my opinion, again, with white labeling products to sell on Amazon and just creating a brand. Okay. And I saw it with these stupid gummies, these stupid CBD gummies and other kinds of gummies. I mean, it just drives me up a wall because they all go to the same exact manufacturer and they come
Mhm.
to us and then they'll say, we have these gummies and we want to sell them on Amazon. And I'll say, yeah, you're buying them from the guy in LA, right? Yeah. Well, so is 20 other people,
Right.
they're all buying them. I know because they're the same shape. It's the bear shape, and it's like, well, we branded ours Berry Fine. Okay, but, like, what's the message? Because everything you're saying, there's 10 other guys saying it. So what's gonna happen is you're gonna go out there with your message, and you have nothing to talk about. There is nothing your product is going to do. You have to think about the customer. What is the benefit of the customer to buy your product? That's how you have to think. What problem am I solving for the customer? It's okay for you to go out and create a brand that you wanna sell because you think you saw some guy talking on social media about how you can create a brand and make $1 million on Amazon, but you didn't think through the equation, right? You have to find a problem that needs to be solved. Then you go out and you find the product for it, or you create the product for it. But you don't sit there and say, "Oh, there's a product. Let me put my brand on it, and then we'll go." I've seen people do that in beauty. I've seen people do that in skincare. I've seen people do that in this whole gummy and nutraceutical world. You have to come up with a solution, and
Mhm.
then you solve that problem with a product.
I think it
Yeah.
comes down to, are you trying to help people or are you just trying to get rich?
Yeah,
Which obviously, like, we all need to provide for our families and ourselves and our employees. But, when you try to solve a problem, you're putting the customer first versus
Mhm.
going, like, hey, I can make a bunch of money off this gummies. It's a secondary, it's a different mindset and it's a different shift.
but you can't. The only person making money in that equation is the person you bought the gummies from. They're the
Exactly.
only ones making money, and you try and explain that to these guys, but it's too late. They've already invested a couple $100,000. Then they're stuck with this product because they put it out on Amazon, they put it on their website. Nobody wants it because they go, "Well, I can buy this exact same gummy for $1 less," and then you sell it for $1 less, and then all of a sudden, everybody keeps dropping their price, and the next thing you know, you're selling it for under what it cost you, and then you lost money. And then you come
Mhm.
crying to me and go, "I lost money. Why did I lose money?"
Yeah, exactly. Kind of shifting back to you as a leader, like you've learned a lot through your entrepreneurial journey of how to lead. You mentioned that a couple times through this. When things get overwhelming, what do you do to reset and refocus your mindset?
You know, it's really funny because I don't usually get overwhelmed, right? And I think that's one of the things about me is the world can be crumbling around me, and I'm always thinking, okay, there's an opportunity here. We just have to find it. And I sort of instill that in my people, but I have a great team of people. And so when things go bad or when things start to not work very well and there's a lot of pressure or whatever, we sort of huddle up and just work through it. And then about an hour later, you wind up with a solution and you sort of move forward. I think COVID was the test for everybody when it comes to, big challenges because overnight the world changed and it really affected everybody. Yeah, great. E-commerce exploded, but only in certain categories. We had clients. I mean, I think we lost a third of our client base during
Wow.
COVID because
Wow.
they went out of business, or
Wow.
they couldn't get product or they stopped selling for a period of time or they changed their model. I mean, we did things like we had a company that did aftermarket auto parts for, Jeeps and things like that. And they had a boat on the water with $2 million worth of product that couldn't get landed. And that was their line of credit. And then they're negotiating with the bank. And, things like that happened. We had, you couldn't move if it wasn't personal care or health related or food related. Baby related, you really couldn't move product on Amazon. Amazon was
Mhm.
only focused on like five major categories, so there were a lot of people that couldn't get product because it got put so much pressure on Amazon. So during that time, we all huddled up and said, look, everybody was looking to me going, are we going to start losing our jobs? And I said, no, we're going to figure out how to get through this. We might make some changes, but, you know, and we didn't get rid of anybody. I didn't take a salary, and, a couple of us didn't take salaries during COVID. We sort of kept everybody on, and we did the best, but we figured out a couple of things that we could do. And that was how we got into doing more, sort of content related things, not just video, and not just ads, but more content related stuff, more things on websites, more conversion rate optimization, just stuff like that that people were looking for that happened during COVID. And that sort of kept us alive until after the lockdown was over and we were able to, sort of get back to things. So I think that was a big test, but I try not to get overwhelmed. I don't usually get overwhelmed. And I think I learned that from my wife because I used to get, this is going to sound stupid, but we bought a house many, many years ago. We bought a house and we knew that it needed like some work and things,
Mm,
and systems, right? Systems,
yeah.
not the house itself, but like systems, your water system, your heating system, and things were just breaking down. We had this bad week and my wife, I was like on the phone, I go, God, and she goes, well, when you own a house, you got to expect these things. So after that, whenever anything goes wrong in a house, I always go, well, when you own a house, you got to expect these things. And I sort of keep that mantra in my head. I own a business. When I own a business, you got to expect these things. And so I sort of keep myself even keeled like that with that mantra because my wife is extremely good at being even keeled.
That's
5 kids
awesome.
later, I guess you've seen everything. So nothing gets to you.
It's like the money pit, right? It's
Yeah.
just like the house keeps costing money and costing money and costing money, and they just like, "I'm gonna give up."
Yeah. In our area, there's so many older homes too,
Yeah.
like ours was built in 1952.
Yeah.
It's always something.
It is. It
Yeah.
is.
It
I'm
is.
curious, I'm gonna ask you to put your coach hat on for a minute,
Yeah.
right?
Love it.
What advice would you give to someone who's just starting out, they wanna grow and scale a company, and that's a client-driven business? What advice would you give them just starting out?
It's a client-driven business, B2B. So I would say, focus on who you're really helping. What is it that you're doing that really helps them? And then, niche it because, the nicher that you can get with something, the better off you are because then your message becomes clearer. Then they know exactly who you are and what you're trying to do and how you're trying to help them. And then you figure out who they are and where they are. So today, I think it's really difficult to do cold email outreach for people in B2B. I think I think all that changed around COVID anyway, but we focus a lot more on LinkedIn because you can be conversational on LinkedIn. I think the mistake people make is going right out for the kill. I do this and I can 10x your business overnight. The people, they just toss your message because you don't know anything about their business. So how can you 10x my business? You don't know who I am or what I do. So, but you can be more conversational if you do it right. And there's tools out there to help you do that, especially in the AI world. So that to me is the thing that I preach to people. Figure out who the customer is, where they are, and then go out and talk to them. And then if you talk to them in a conversational way, right, then you're sort of on a different playing field. And then it may take 5 or 6 back and forth messages over a period of a week or two, but then you can get them on the phone. And once you get them on the phone, then you
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
One of the things you mentioned there was, pick a niche, right? What do you say to people who are like, I don't want to pick a niche, right? How do you coach them through that to really help them understand they really need to?
well, then what's your, the thing I always ask is what's your message going to be, right? What's your message? I do everything for everybody. You can't. I tried that in the world. Everybody used to say to me in the shaving business, "Oh, it's easy because everybody shaves." No, it's not easy, and we don't want everybody who shaves because we used to focus on 25 to 45-year-old men and women. That's who we focused on. Are we going to get people older than 45? Sure. Are we going to get people younger than 25? Sure. But that's where the market is because those people, when you're over 45, you've been shaving for 20 years. you're stuck with your 3-blade razor, you like that thing, it's gonna be really difficult to change you. When you're under 25, you haven't grown hair yet, you're still in college, you're using disposable razors, you don't care about shaving yet, right? 25 years old, you got your first job, you need to look good every day. 45, those are the people, men and women, and so they're not set. So you can change those. So I use that example all the time, that saying, look, you can't go after everybody. It's impossible, right? Then you have no message. If your message is so broad, you have no message.
Yeah.
No, it's
Thank
really
you.
good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, we have those conversations with our clients a lot too about how, you know, let's narrow it down just a little. Let's narrow down the messaging because how someone's going to react in the healthcare industry is going to be different than what a coach is going to or coach or consultant is going to resonate with.
Just real quick, we had a consumer product that was dye free, all natural, and it was a pudding and gelatin mix, right? So it was very timely, especially with all the talk about dyes and food dyes and things like this. And I said, we put together a plan for them on social, on, all these places, just pounding the dye free and the all natural message. And they're like, well, we should also talk about this. We should also talk about that. I said, no, we're just going to pound that message because you want everybody to know that when it comes to dye free, you're it. You
Mhm.
don't want to convolute the message and say, well, we're also this. That's great. They're going to get that when they buy the product. But you want to pound that message, till they're sick of hearing it.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. So, kind of wrapping this up, how do people learn about you, get to work with you, and Crunch Growth?
You can reach me LinkedIn. You can reach me on crunchgrowth.com. You can reach me on philmasiello.com. You can reach me anywhere. I mean, I'm easy to find. If you just Google me, you'll see I have a TV show, I have books, and blah, blah, blah. Crunch Growth, you go to crunchgrowth.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I pretty much post content there almost every day. I try and get in some good discussions with people. I like LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm on social media. So easy to find anywhere you want me.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, we met through LinkedIn and I was glad we
Yeah.
did. So, yeah, I really enjoyed our intro conversation. And then, of course, this podcast was just, I don't know, you gave me some things to think about too as a business owner, which is good. It's supposed to be beneficial for the people listening, but I'm also learning through this process, also, right? We learn,
Yeah, I do
always
too. That's
learning.
why I love doing these. I love doing my show because I talk to entrepreneurs who've scaled businesses. And the reason I love doing it is because I learn so much listening to what they do and how they did it. And so it's great.
Exactly. I appreciate you being on the show, Phil.
My
I
pleasure.
think
Thank
you're
you.
just you're a wealth of knowledge and you've got the strands of wisdom that I'm glad that we got to learn a little bit from you and got to hear your story. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Phil.
All right. Thank you.